Hi, I am Kevin from Beast and Cleaver, and today we cooked the most iconic king of steaks for me, the Porterhouse. We pan-seared it, slow roasted it, glazed it with butter and tallow, garlic and rosemary, and we're gonna get into this. Today we're going to be looking at the short loin, where we're going to get three types of steaks from: our classic Porterhouse, our T-bones, and a couple of bone-in New Yorks coming off of this too. The short loin is essentially the extension of the ribeye. The ribeye ends here on the 13th rib. Here's our rib 13. And this is that longissimus muscle that continues up into the ribeye section. The difference with this guy is the spinalis starts to end, and the longissimus muscle, which is essentially the eye of the ribeye, continues to become one singular muscle, and then it gets bigger and will eventually end about here, going onto the back leg, connecting to the top sirloin. This steak on the side here, this whole big piece, is our tenderloin. Filet mignon, fillet, comes all the way down and also connects up here into the hip bone, but most of this part gets taken off and is used for individual steaks. When we look at this here, we're looking as a roadmap. Butchers would like to reference the chine, the spine, as where to cut. So in between each individual vertebrae, how we do it at a shop, we'll get two classic porterhouses on these two vertebrae. Then we'll cut in between the vertebrae, and then as we come down further, we'll get T-bones by cutting through the vertebrae. And then depending on where the tenderloin comes and ends, we might get T-bones that go all the way to the end, but usually it's too small, so we'll cut a couple of bone-in New Yorks from here. This is a 862-pound Black Angus English Baldy cross from Pure Country Farms, Moses Lake. All of the stuff we use is local, and this is going through Preservation Meat, our amazing purveyors who supply us with all this amazing meat. First off, I'm going to mark my cuts over here. So what I'm looking for is the vertebrae here and here. And I want to take my knife and come down here through it, keeping in a straight line. And again, coming onto the next one. And I'm going to mark all of the in between each vertebrae as I go first. Coming down over here, just cutting down to the spine bone here. Then what I want to do is look at where my T-bones are going to be, which are going to be from here, here, and here. Now, when I'm taking my saw to this, I want to be cautious of the tenderloin. I don't want to be sticking my hands and pulling on it. I want to treat the tenderloin with care, and I don't want the saw facing down. I want as much friction on the bone rather than on the meat. So the saw's slightly pointing upwards, and I'm not going to be sticking my hand into the tenderloin. I'm going to be gently holding here, letting the saw do the work. What I don't want to be doing is this. You're just going to tear the tenderloin. So nice and gently following those lines. And as soon as you hear that noise, you're done. Come through to the next one. Done. Now I'm going to go through the vertebrae here. So these ones are going between. Now, we like to do everything by hand, mainly because cleaning a bandsaw is nobody's favorite job. So hear the noise, stop, last one. And there's a bone here too. This is that 13th rib. So we're going to cut directly through that bone. And I can spin it round now. A little clean up here. And you can see where I've cut here. So essentially, we get two big classic porterhouses, then we cut T-bones. I feel like we're cheating customers if we call these porterhouses. For a porterhouse to be a porterhouse, it needs a big tenderloin. 1 3/4 inches is what the classic guidelines say. we don't really reference classic guidelines. We just think about our customers and what is best for them. To portion these, I'm going to do it this way over here. Really nice and easy going through, keeping a straight line. And we'll drop one and we'll come back and clean these as we go. This is the way to get most strength in a grip. If you do it like this, you don't have as much strength. So holding it like so, you can get your whole shoulder behind it. And I like to leverage my whole body and get down and come through. This is insanely good beef again. I'm going to go ahead and trim these up by first starting to use a little bone scraper here. The bone scraper just takes off the scrapings of the saw where it's cut into bone and meat. If you don't take this off, it just the steak will oxidize, and also the customers will end up eating like bone dust essentially. So to get this porterhouse ready, not much trimming to do on this one. We're really close. Just want to take a little of the fat off up here. There's a little hard tendon down here. Take that off, and then I just want to look at this fat on here. How much do I want? I want pretty much all of it, but just some of this outside is going to come off. And then for cooking, I love to just like score this fat across here. Just helps render it, makes it look a little nicer. So I'm not going to trim all of this lovely bark off over here. This has got flavor in it, and it's going to help protect the tenderloin as it cooks. If you trim too much of this off, you're just going to end up wasting meat on the end. So it does look a little oxidized. For the shop, we do trim this up because so many customers eat with their eyes. But if I'm cooking, I would 100% leave this on and trim it at the end to get more meat. This weighs about 3 pounds, can be a little challenging to cook. So I'm going to show you how we like to do it at the shop for the restaurant, and also how I like to do it at home. One of the things we're going to notice is that when we cook this, it's probably inevitable that this tenderloin is going to get a little bit more cooked than the New York strip side, and that's fine. That's totally how it's going to be. You know, you could sous vide it and get everything perfect, but for me, I'm a traditionalist and I don't mind certain things being a little bit more cooked on one side than the other. So this is going to go into a hot pan with tallow. I'm going to finish it in the oven with loads of fresh herbs and garlic, and we'll make a beautiful jus at the end. Before I do anything, I want to get a little score on this fat over here. So just a little, it's again not essential, but I like to score into the fat just to help crisp it up, help make it look pretty on the outside. Don't want to go too deep. I'm not trying to cut into the meat. And when I cook this, I'm going to cook it fat side down first. It's not seasoned. I don't season them beforehand. I feel like that starts to cure the meat, and that's not what we're looking to do. I think seasoning a steak just beforehand is the best way to do it. And also leaving a big steak like this at room temperature is definitely key. The internal temperature of this is going to be a lot easier to get where I want it to be. If the center of it's stone cold, then you're going to be kind of fighting a losing battle. So generous salt on a steak like this. When you think you've added enough salt, you probably haven't unless you're cooking in a restaurant. I'm going to take some tallow into our pan, which is really hot over here. I want to make sure this is getting rendered down. It's important on here to cook the fat. There's so many times you'll go out to a restaurant and people will put a steak in the pan like this and like this, and then it comes up and it's all like a little bit limp, you know. It doesn't have any color to it. It doesn't taste great, and you're missing out on part of the best part of the steak. So the pan is nice and hot. You can see the smoke coming off. I'm just gonna get this into the fat now. And I want to be slow with this. So, you know, this is a big steak. It's gonna take probably 30 to 40 minutes from start to finish to cook. So don't rush it. You don't need to be burning things here. But we're trying to render the fat down. So we're getting a lovely color on here, which is also gonna add tons of flavor. It's also going to help soften the sinew that lives underneath the New York strip. So low and slow. Don't be thinking about adding butter or herbs yet. It's just going to burn if you do that. This is all about getting that fat crispy. And you can see those little score marks starting to come into play now already. Now you can use the tongs. I'm touching meat all day, so I'm comfortable with my hands, but do whatever you feel comfortable with. Also, I like to leave it on, thinking of it not as fat. Think of it as bone marrow, you know. It's delicious flavor. It's going to render down. It's not like the fat that you find on a brisket. It's not like the fat you'd find on the outside here. This is like gold fat. This is the fat that you want to be cooking and eating. This is also good. The pan's really hot at the moment, and you want to be careful here that you're keeping an eye on it because it can burn pretty quickly. So if you're not comfortable doing this, drop the heat and go low and slow on this. But I'm comfortable using a high heat, and moving it around is key. You know, I'm checking it every couple of minutes to make sure it's not burning. There's a difference between like caramelized and burnt, and we definitely don't want burnt. So this is also helping the steak temper, getting it to a more even room temperature. You know, there's heat coming through here. It's making the New York strip and the tenderloin become easier to cook. So again, we're looking for like on this steak, we're going to have some well done pieces and we're going to have some pretty rare pieces. And that to me is the beauty of a big steak like this, you know. So getting close here, getting really close, but still not there. Getting close. I'm going to keep going. Tallow has got a really high smoke point, so it's not going to burn. Don't use your best olive oil. Don't use butter. It's just going to burn, and you're going to have horrible flavour coming out of everything there. Getting real close here. You can see this part here. This is what I'm looking for here, right in here. So a minute or so. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. So really crispy, golden. It's not burnt. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So now be careful again, don't drop it towards yourself, like lean it away. So we're looking to get color, and we'll do this 3, 4, 5 times, as long as it takes. This is like building the flavor of the steak here. Just take your time, you know. This is not hard, but this is where the work needs to be correct. Once it goes in the oven, that's the easy part. You just put a thermometer in it and temp it. So let's take a little look over here. I like to use forks. You can use tongs. We're getting a little bit of color. I'm going to flip it over, start building color here. You can see that gold fat now. And once I add the butter, the color of the steak's going to change, and it's going to become even more caramelized due to all of the sugars and the fats in the butter starting to cook as well. So I can see that there's a steam coming off of the steak as well as smoke here. So that's telling me that it's not fully caramelized yet. So I'm going to lift it, show you. You see parts of it are, build up the flavor here. And we will cook this side too. A piece of meat like this is never going to be completely flat. So parts of it are going to caramelize quicker than others. So that's why you need to turn it over, continue to get the color that you choose to have on it. For me, I want it to be pretty much like this all the way around. So again, like this is a great little pan to use here. Again, continuing to watch the steak, turning it, flipping it. How's it doing? Starting to get more color on this side now. Now getting a little bit of cook on the tenderloin side. Being a little careful here, it's a little more tender. Coming down gently. The fat's hot. Don't splash it, you will definitely burn yourself. So this is colored. This is all nice and colored up here, caramelized. Now I just want to kind of work on this side over here. You can see also the fat on the outside that we crisped up in the beginning. It's continuing to cook as I poulet this. It's running down in it, getting it crispy. We'll do a couple more flips, see where we're at. Again, coming in. Getting there, building that color. This part of the steak is a little bit lower down, so we want to get some color on that in there too. Don't be worried about like developing too much of a crust here. The inside of this steak is completely raw. It's, you know, it's at room temperature in the middle, so don't be thinking that you're overcooking it here. You're certainly not. Let's turn this guy over. We're looking in here. This is pretty much there. This is pretty much there. I'm going to drop the heat slightly now. About 3, it's like a medium heat in here now. I'm doing that because I'm going to go in with all of the butter. Let the butter just start to slowly melt. Leave it. This is again flavor. We're basting. It's getting into all those little crevices. And you can see immediately the color of the steak changing when you add the butter. I'm not adding the herbs just yet. I don't want them to burn. So I'm going to go in with some garlic now. I've got big chunks of garlic, knowing that they're going to get crispy. You don't want them to become bitter and burnt. You want them to be like nice little chewy little garlicky crisps that you eat at the end. We're going to start to flip it. And we can see on this side now, coming in, amazing color. Like, look at the color on this. This is exactly what we're looking for here. Deep, deep caramelization all the way around. Now I feel comfortable getting my herbs coming in. So now that we've got this guy kind of hanging out, resting, going to get all of this in the pan. We're going to build a little bed so we can stand it up, get it under the thyme, under the rosemary. This is all going to become really, really crispy. This is now ready to go into the oven here. Okay, so steak's been in for about 10 to 15 minutes at the moment. We have one of these fancy thermometers reading about 133 degrees, which is exactly on the medium to rare side. This is important that this guy needs to rest now. So again, we see like amazing color. As the heat permeates through the bone, it starts to cook a lot more evenly than having it laying flat on one side. If you had it flat on one side, you're going to have one side that's a little bit more overcooked and one side that's a little bit less. Standing it up gives you that lovely even cook. So this needs to rest for a good 10 minutes at least. A general rule that I like to follow is on a big piece of meat, rest it for half the amount of time it was in the oven. So this was in about 10 to 15 minutes. So we'll give it a good at least 7-minute resting period. And then don't waste all of this. This is what we've been building for flavor. Tons of flavor here. We're going to use this on the final dish too. And then get all of this lovely fat and pour it over the steak. And we'll just leave this now for 5 to 10 minutes. It's firm at the moment. It's like plump. You know, it's come out of the hot oven. It's like, ugh. Now it wants to cool down, relax, start to soften, and we'll slice it, carve it, and that will be the best steak, the king of steaks for me, the Porterhouse. Yeah. Okay, so this is the big giant Porterhouse. Been in the oven, it's rested for a good 10 minutes. I've got all these lovely garlic and rosemary. None of this is going to go to waste. And for me, I like to do these standing up. I like to come down, find that bone, and just leave it fall off. This is the tenderloin coming off. Beautiful pink in the middle. I've got my bone that runs up here. So I want to come down, find that bone, and let the knife glide along the bone, and then come around the vertebrae down, take it off in nice one piece. And when we look at this, I'm looking for different textures and different donenesses on here. So I'm just going to cut this how I want to serve it on the plate. I'm going to start with a strip. I'm going to cut it beautifully into these little nuggets of steak here. One of the things I'm looking to do here is get a piece of fat on every bite. I'm not cutting it in all different directions. I want to make this look presentable on the plate, and I want people to be, when they sit down and eat it, they can see the individual muscles that they're eating. So we'll leave this here. Just fan it out. Got our tenderloin. We've got this lovely nugget of fat here. Take that off. Again, think of that as the bone marrow. We got this little side muscle, the psoas minor on here, which is also really good. Tenderloin. For me on this one, I'm going to cut it. I'm not going to cut it in half. I'm going to cut it into a few big pieces so you can see the open grain structure. Don't cut the steak too thick. This is like absolutely cooked perfectly, exactly how I want it. I'm now gonna plate it up on here how I like to do it. I'm gonna take our beautiful plate here. I'm gonna have our bone as a guide of how we do this. Again, don't throw this away. There's amazing eating on here. So I want the bone to be here, seeing that the New York strip's here, and I'm gonna come in with my tenderloin, starting putting it back together. Again, like all those different textures, colors going in. This little nugget of fat, I'm gonna cut it into a few pieces. Again, like think of it as bone marrow. Don't be afraid to eat that. It's delicious. Put it down the side of the tenderloin. We've got 3 lovely pieces. We've got our New York strip here. So if you look at the middle of it, beautifully pink. And then if you look at the end, this is what I'm talking about with frying and oven roasting. You get all the different textures. Let's build this again. Crispy pieces at the top, coming down the plate. Trying to make this all fit on. I like to fan them around the plate here. And then get a few pieces in here. And I want to take this little muscle over here, cut this into 2. This is the psoas minor, the tenderloin being the psoas major. This is the chain. It's got lovely little gristly, chewy parts in it. This was actually classically used for stroganoff, this part here. So going in here. Now, all of this lovely cooking jus, we don't want to waste any of that. This is like what we've been aiming for. So I want to take these chewy pieces of garlic, place them around the plate. This is like fantastic for, I mean, you can see how much meat a 3.5 pound steak is going to give you. This is enough for, I'd say, 5 people here. This is one of my favorite things to do, is take this the rosemary that's been roasted and just like peel it off. Get all these crunchy pieces that have absorbed all the steak juices, all the fat. Then I want to take some of this jus over here. We've got beef fat, we've got butter, and then we've got the caramelized like essence of beef that's come out of the beef again in here. So I want to get this over the steaks. Be generous with this. This is all flavor. I don't want to ruin the presentation, but I do want everybody to get the flavor. So as we get down here, look at this. This is the gold there. That's the gold. Dark brown beef jus. And then I want to finish with Maldon salt. Maldon to me is like home, it's England. It's also, I think, the best salt in the world. It's crunchy and it's got amazing salinity. You know, this is, to me, the best steak you can get here. This is the king of steaks. So, the steak is all completely done, finished. You know, we started with an entire short loin section, broke it down into these big, fat, delicious porterhouses here. We've got all these different textures in here. We've got the slightly well done pieces. We've got the really rare pieces up here. And we've got this lovely chunk of like tallow that's been slow roasted. Think of it as bone marrow. And we've got the tenderloin over here, the New York strip. Each bite along here has got the beautiful, crispy, fatty skin on here. And just to finish, again, this is not necessary. We got that insane, massive demi that's been slow cooked for like 4 days. And I'm just gonna pour this over the meat. And that to me is like the king of steaks there. And the best bite for me is taking the fat, piece of the tenderloin, piece of the rosemary. You cannot get any better than that. That is the best steak that I can possibly make. And this is how we do it at the restaurant too. At least in Cleaver, you can come in and get these just like this. And you can also buy them raw at the shop.
Subscribe to our channel and visit ChefSteps.com for more tips, recipes, guides, and tools to help you level up in the kitchen.